I've written songs for years and years and years. Over the years, I have collected lyrical ideas in notebooks and scraps of paper. Right now, if I come up with a lyrical idea, I just enter it into my phone. So I've got files and files of lyric ideas. So when I'm in the studio now, I have a riff. I'll whip out my phone and I'll just go through all the lyrical ideas that I have. You know, sometimes it's usually it's like one line or two lines. Sometimes it's a whole, 3, 4 verses. That's rare, but sometimes it's like that. Anytime I get an idea, something will pop into my head. I'll whip out my phone and I'll just enter it in. But before phones, I used to carry a notepad with me, a little, small little notepad, or a tiny book of, empty pages, and I just scribble in there. Sometimes I wouldn't have a notebook handy, so what I would do is I would grab any piece of paper I could and borrow a pen, and I'd write it down, and I'd take that piece of paper and put it in my pocket. Over the years, I had so many pieces of paper with ideas on it, and just a mess, just this rat's nest of paper. And sometimes it's like a piece of paper that I ripped into a small shred just to write that lyric on, and then just, put that on the pile. So it literally looked like a rat's nest of paper. And, but very important paper because, if I come up with a riff, like a piece of music, and I don't have any lyrics, well, I'll record the instrumental track, and then I'll put some headphones on and I'll listen back to it, and then I'll go through my collection of papers with lyrical ideas on them, and I just try singing different, grab one, try singing what's written on the paper. That kind of doesn't work. Throw that back in the pile, pick up another one, and eventually I'll come across the idea that clicks, something that really works. That's where songs will sprout from. Complete songs. Doesn't always work like that, but I quite enjoy writing. Well, one day, in my drinking years, so this would have been in my early 30s, late 20s. I had a job working as a security guard. And it was kind of cool because half the time when I wasn't on patrol during an 8-hour shift, if I wasn't on patrol, what I would be doing is I would be sitting at the desk with the lever on the drawbridge thing, or the arm that would lift up and let cars in and let cars down. It was like a little security guard shack there. And when I wasn't on patrol, I'd be sitting there twiddling my thumbs. Well, instead of twiddling my thumbs, I had all my lyrics in my backpack I brought to work with my lunch. So I'd sit there and I bought this elaborate book, really nice book with, so I can write in. And what I would do is I'd take this massive amount of paper that I had written all these lyrical ideas and I'd compile them in this book. So I'd sit there and I'd grab a piece of paper and I'd look at, oh, there's a nice little lyrical idea, 2 lines. Okay, so I'd copy that into the book. And I'd take the piece of paper and throw it in the garbage. So it took me a while, but I eventually got all these pieces of paper thrown in the garbage and entered into this book. Nice collection of everything. Much more organized than having all these scraps of paper. So that was my big project for when I was sitting down and not doing patrols at my job as security for this company. Well, I was taking medication. I started taking medication because this was towards the end of my drinking, towards the end of my alcoholism. And I was quite depressed, actually. Things weren't going well for me. Yeah, I had a job, but there was a lot of things that weren't going well. I had suicidal thoughts and was crying a lot. Because I missed my children and, was living with my alcoholism and was living with my decisions that I had made in my life at that time. We all have to live with our decisions. So I was quite introspective and I decided, okay, well, I'm gonna try and get on antidepressants because I don't want to feel like this all the time. I was feeling horrible. I was crying on the bus. It was bad. I don't think anybody saw me, but I was like, staring out the window on the bus on my way to work, crying. It was a very, very dark time. Very dark. Suicidal thoughts, missing my kids, just brutal. So I started taking Paxil. And so there I was taking this stuff, Paxil, and I'm doing my patrols at work. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool because I know that I have emotional pain. And being on Paxil, the way it affected me was I'm walking around doing my patrols and I'm noticing I know I have emotional pain, but inside of me it feels like all the emotional pain has now dulled. I know it's still there. I know the issues are still there. But if my emotional pain is inside me and it's sharp and jagged and it's like a ball of sharp, jagged edges and it's bouncing around or scraping around the insides of my being. Being on Paxil turned all those sharp edges and made this thing into a balloon. That's the only way I could describe it. It was a balloon that was now no longer any sharp edges that would hurt me, just this balloon of emotional stuff that I knew was there was just kind of bouncing around inside of me. And I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. I don't feel this sadness and this dark melancholy and these dark thoughts. I don't feel those anymore. I know they're there, but I don't feel them. There's like, they've been deactivated. I know they're there, but I don't really feel all of that massive pain. I thought to myself, well, this is great. I can finally sit down and do some more writing, I thought to myself. So I remember this day clearly. I was on patrol and this had happened. I'm feeling this emotional freedom from these thoughts and everything, these dark emotions. And I remember thinking, okay, this is going to be great. I'm going to sit down at the desk at the guard shack and I'm going to start writing, because by then I had compiled all my loose pieces of paper into this book. So I sat down and I grabbed a pen and I sat there and I couldn't think of anything. There was nothing. I couldn't write. I literally sat there and it hit me. I can't write because my emotions, all the dark stuff, that's somehow attached to my creativity. And when those dark emotions were shut off or they were guarded or whatever, I couldn't write. The only way that I could describe that moment was I had this vision in my head as I sat there trying to write and couldn't. I had this vision in my head and I thought, if there's a well, like a water well, in the ground, and that well represented my emotional state and my creativity, somebody had cemented over the well, and there was no way to get to the well any longer. And so it was that moment where I decided, okay, this only means one thing. At that moment, it only meant one thing to me, and it was this. If I love to write, and if I love my creativity and my creative mind, and if my creativity is something beautiful about me, that I enjoy, that I love doing, then I want more of that, for sure. That is a peaceful place for me. But if that peaceful place and those beautiful moments are attached to all the other stuff, all the dark thoughts and the suicidal thoughts and the melancholy and the crying and the emotional turmoil, if those two things are attached to each other, then I have to learn how to love those things as well. It's all inside of me. It's all part of me, and I have to learn to love all of it. I can't just love the creative part and not love the dark stuff. And so I went off Paxil because I needed to write, and I couldn't write while I was on Paxil. I just could not do it. And I realized that I couldn't find happiness in a pill. And I definitely could not find happiness in a bottle of whiskey or a bottle of beer, rum. I couldn't find happiness in any of those places. My happiness was inside of me. And if I love my creativity, but it's attached to the darkness of myself, well, then I have to learn to love that too. I actually wrote a song about that. But yeah, I'll never forget that day where I'd sat down and I couldn't write. I never ever want to go through that again. And I've never been on antidepressants since then. And it was within a couple of years, probably actually within a year, that I finally just quit drinking altogether. And it was because I made the decision to love all of myself, not just one piece of me. Even the darkness, I had to love that too. Okay.